So please give a big round of applause to Daniel Romano.
Hi. So I work for a part of Disney called Disney Interactive, where I oversee UX and design. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but before I get into that, I want to get a little personal. So this is my family. That's my wife and my daughter. I also have a 2-year-old son. He's not in this picture. And we've been married it'll be 8 years this December. And a little over a year and a half ago, we hit a rough patch. And what I think it was that the change in dynamic that happened when we became a family, when we had kids, the fabric of our marriage changed dramatically, and it was really difficult. And so we hired a marriage counselor to help navigate those waters and rebuild our marriage. And it worked. And through that process, we learned how to communicate with each other again, and more importantly, how to hear one another. And through it, I learned that what we were building wasn't a fault-free marriage. It was building a fault-tolerant one, because you can't build a fault-free one. 50% of marriages fail. You're going to hit bumps. And so I started thinking about this concept of fault tolerance. So you're probably wondering why am I talking about my wife and my kids and my family and our marriage counselor? A design conference. So I'm going to start talking about my team. This was the Matterhorn team. Matterhorn was the code name for a project that we worked on for 18 months where we redesigned Disney.com, and we built a team entirely internally from scratch, hired an entire new team of cross-functional people, makers, UX designers, artists, engineers, everybody, and we stuffed them in this awesome building that was a soundstage, and we built an office. Because we were creating something new, and we wanted a place to create that new thing. And I think this took about 2 months to build. And the reason we did that was because the project we're undertaking was part of a large organization, and organizations have cultures that are attached to their platforms, and we needed a space that was totally new and different and would allow us to focus on creating something new that had nothing to do with whatever had been done before, because we literally had to rethink and start over. It was a lot longer than I thought it was. So that was our space, and we created that space to redesign this website, because for like 12, 14 years, this is what it looked like. And when it came out, this was awesome. It was full of Flash, it moved, it sang, it did all kinds of crazy things. But as time went on, it was very difficult to do the things the business needed and to tell the stories we needed to tell on the devices that people were looking for those stories. And so we created this. We super simplified it. We made it responsive. It works on every device you can think of. And we launched, actually, a year ago, last Monday. That was our anniversary. And then something happened. The team went from becoming the team that designed the site to the team that ran the site. And we went through a reorg, and we were no longer in that cool space. We changed. We went someplace else. And what happened is we hit a rough patch. And I hit a rough patch. And I had just gone through this process with the marriage thing, and so I started to wonder, maybe I could apply what I learned there at work. And so I started. Now, you can't change people. You can't change anyone on your team, but one thing you can do is you can change yourself, and you can change the things that you control. And when I shifted into this role of running a UX organization of 30-plus people and being a head of creative for the Disney company, it was intoxicating. It was kind of a power rush, and quickly it became more about the prestige and the power than it was about the product. And that didn't sit well with me. It took me a while to figure that out. And so I had to do something really drastic. So I gave up my team. I gave up my 30-person UX team for a smaller 12-person cross-functional team that could focus on one product, and that product was Disney Junior. And the reason this was interesting to me and to this team I was putting together was we had just spent 18 months redesigning a whole website, but it was for everybody. Like everybody you can think of. Everyone goes to Disney.com, and it's the gateway to the entire company. But Disney is so often associated with experiences for children, and this was an opportunity to actually make something for children. And it was also something dear to me, having a two-year-old and a 5-year-old, something I could build that they could use and understand. But most importantly, it was an opportunity to get back to the core of what made that team and that experience of redesigning Disney.com special. So it was a long road to getting to finishing the redesign. And I had all these new tools, so I wanted to start to use them. And I started doing something kind of crazy. Anyone ever see that movie, Crazy People, where there's like truth in advertising from the 80s? I started doing that. And I started telling my team absolutely everything, even the things my boss told me I shouldn't be telling anybody. Because an informed team is engaged. And an engaged team asks lots of questions. And that's how you measure their engagement. If they're really thinking critically about the work they're doing and challenging ideas and want to build something new, that they need to be asking lots of questions, both of themselves, of their stakeholders, and of the users and guests that they're building for. Now, the thing about lots of questions is that they're going to eventually lead to conflict. And this isn't a bad thing. It does suck. Conflict is a pain in the ass. But our job is to manage conflict and not avoid it, because that's where special things happen. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I have made nearly every single person on my team cry at one point or another. Usually, not purposely, but usually because I stuck my foot in my mouth or because I don't really think before I say things. But each of those conflicts was an opportunity to learn something. And through these conflicts with my team and with my wife, I learned two very important things. Is that you can be wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. And most importantly, I could be wrong with my team. Because me being wrong meant they could be right. And them being right meant they could build confidence within that organization and within that team. Now, conflict kind of means that you hit the second step in that. The second thing I learned was that we had to establish boundaries. So we couldn't just make each other cry all the time and yell at each other. Now, the team that I selected to work on this project, we had worked together. It was most of the team from the redesign, so we knew each other pretty well, and we knew what buttons to push and which ones not to. So the boundaries we were establishing were not emotional boundaries or interpersonal boundaries. They were project boundaries, because boundaries bring safety to organizations, and they bring focus to projects. And so our first decision as a team, and we did this as a team, no one told us to do this, we decided to focus the entire effort of Disney Junior on tablet-first experience, because that's where we thought kids were going to play with it most for the next 5 years. And when you're at a company like Disney, when you build something, you're going to build it for the next 5, 10, 14 years. And so we wanted to be ready for that. And we also wanted to build something special, something that really fulfilled this story that Disney Junior was telling. It's the original stories. Everything in Disney Junior is new content, but they're all telling this very, very core Disney story. And we wanted a platform that would allow us to do that. And to do that, we had to learn how to communicate with each other, because we had all changed these roles, and there's all these new stresses. And to communicate better, you can't read minds. It's not possible. And it's pretty easy to tell when things are going well, because there's something in the air and everyone feels good about it. But it's hard to tell when things start to go bad. And this actually came up with my marriage counselor, was that we would give each other weather reports to my wife. So we knew exactly where we stood. Were we angry about something? Did we feel sad about something? Did we feel hurt? And were we scared? Now, I didn't make my team go through that. That would have been a little weird. So I kind of boiled it down. We had a daily stand-up, and in the stand-up, I would always ask, what don't you think is working right now? What don't you like about the project we're working on? And that, they didn't really talk very much about it. They'd be like, no, it's going good, it's going good. And then eventually one morning we came in and my art director said, it's not fun. This experience we're creating is not fun. And it's beautiful and it's interesting looking and it looks like Disney, but it's not fun. We need to do something fun. And I turned to the team. I was like, so what can we do? And her idea was to add a little element to the site that was a keyboard that meant you could discover and play music. And it had no purpose. It didn't do anything. It didn't unlock anything. It was just a little keyboard and kids could start playing on it. We were like, that's kind of awesome, so let's do that. But that wouldn't have ever happened had I not asked in the beginning, what aren't we doing? Because that empowers them to ask those questions and challenge thoughts. Now this kind of goes back to when I was wrong. But an extension of that is being able to admit that you're wrong is also being able to not do everything and not want to do everything. And I'm very control freak, so I like to get very involved. And that was a big hurdle for me to let go of those needs and to respect my team's ability. And so what I had to actually do was go on vacation for a while and let them kind of find their way, get things set up and then let them find their way. And when you do that, and they're actually successful, and they had meetings with executives that they had never met with, and they had to deal with craziness that I usually dealt with for them. But when they did it on their own, they learned how to do it on their own, and that was really powerful. And what that did was, it built trust amongst the team and loyalty to the team and inside the team and to their work. And this was really critical because they were going to need it, because we launched. And it was really impressive because we launched a product in 3 months. I'll let you guys play with it. This is what it looks like when you get to it, and that's the keyboard at the bottom of the page. We launched it in 3 months, and this is a big challenge at a company like Disney because there are so many stakeholders, and we are dealing with the Disney Channel, and we're dealing with network executives. The person who founded the Disney Channel was there. And we're also working with the showrunners from each of the major shows, and they all have a different opinion of what should be on there and what shouldn't be on there, and it was a big challenge, and we wrangled them, and we got the product out, and we launched it in 3 months, and we hit our date perfectly. And then the product completely failed. All our metrics bottomed out. Traffic didn't bottom out, but the metrics bottomed out. People weren't using the site. They were getting to it, and they were stuck. And so everybody around us is completely freaking out, except for my team. And they were there, and they spent a couple nights, and they started to find solutions, and they started poking holes in what we had created, and then they fixed things, and they deployed a crap ton of code to do it. And they did this because we had prepared them for the path, not the other way around. We didn't take everything out of their way. We let those things be in their way. And that's how we created this project. And I just went super fast through the whole thing. So I'll take some questions.